Welcome to Beer Net Radio. Listen to on every continent except Antarctica. B-E-E-R-R-N-E-T.
Beer.
Beer Net Radio.
Hello, Jordan and Mark. Welcome to Beer Net Radio. I think we're still waiting for Mark to go live. Hey, how are you, Mark?
Hey, here I am.
Nice
How's
to
it going?
face to face. All right, well, let me go ahead and introduce you. Welcome to Beer Net Radio, Marc Randazza, a well-known First Amendment attorney of Las Vegas-based Randazza Legal Group. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. So first, I got to ask you the tough questions, right? You're Sicilian like me, right? You told me that. You're Sicilian like me, right?
Machito.
I mean, so Harry always makes fun of me. I'm everything, and so I claim everything. But so my great grandparents came over through Ellis Island. So my last name is Litz. My maiden last name is Litz, but that's because my grandparents took Rizzo and Cagliardi and somehow came up with Litz so that they could work in a German wine factory. I don't, you do what you have to do.
You want to work in wine? You change your name from an Italian name to a German one?
Well, I think they had a quota of, I don't know, Mark, you can ask my dad about it sometime.
I could spot you a mile away. I'd say, Ije una siciliana.
You said it best. So, well, thank you for coming on the show. I think it's really cool. The cases you've been involved in beer over the last few months. And I think we're all sitting around here wondering, wait.
Beer, drugs, guns, porn, it's like.
And beer, drugs, guns.
If your mother would approve, I don't work on it.
Yeah, sin biz is covered.
Well, hey, while you're at that, I mean, you've worked with Lucian Greaves, right? Of the Satanic Temple, right?
Yeah, just had breakfast with him on this weekend, actually.
Oh my gosh. He's a nice guy, right? He's got to be.
He's a great guy. Most of the people I represent, who you'd think aren't that nice actually are.
Yeah.
It's like you would kind of think the Satanist would be a rough character. He's a sweetheart.
Oh, that's so funny. And we've written, and you've worked with who else? Alex Jones, who all sorts of high name people.
Yeah, and Alex is nicer than you'd think as well. But
I find that hard to believe.
It's funny when people ask me though, they're like, is that all an act? I'm like, man, no, he tones it down just a little bit for the camera.
Wow. Yeah. Just like Harry. Too bad Harry couldn't be with us. So Mark, we've met before. I'm Jen Litz. I'm executive editor of Schuhmacher Publishing, and this is Jordan. Well, Jordan, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, Jordan Driggers, the beer editor over at Schuhmacher Publishing. Great to have you on, man.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I'm sorry that our fearless leader Harry isn't here. He has COVID. If you had seen Monday's edition, you would see him brandishing his positive test result all over, and so he's resting.
That's funny.
Yeah. No, but so tell us how you went. Well, first of all, tell us how you went from being a lowly journalist like us to being a well-known lawyer. I went to journalism school almost. Actually, I went to college thinking I wanted to major in journalism because that was a profession that I felt I could follow and drink lots of gin. And then my journalism school had a required class that was on Fridays at 9:30 a.m., which violated two of my cardinal rules of class selection. So I changed my major like 7 times. And so fortunately, since I was in college for 7 years, that class eventually changed time slots. So as soon as that happened, I went back. I said, hey, I'm back. And they were like, oh yeah, we've missed you. Well, why'd you come back? I'm like, well, you moved that stupid 9:30 a.m. on a Friday? I mean, that's like halfway into my weekend. Halfway.
But I flunked out of college 3 times. And the third time I came back, it was sort of like, all right, you're on double secret probation, Mr. Blutarski. And
I took this class, journalism and law. And it was all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, this is cool. I really like this stuff. And then I don't know what I did the night before my first exam, but I got a 37 on that exam, which out of 100, which I didn't major in math, but that's like not wicked good. And my professor, Karen List, who still teaches in the J school there, still teaches that class. She's, smaller than me. She's like this, kind of small, slight woman. And, and I'm sitting there with like my mohawk and my leather jacket. And she grabs me by the neck and slams me against the wall and says, "You're the smartest person I've ever had in my fucking class. And you just failed my fucking exam. I don't know what your problem is, but get your shit together." And I was like, "Oh, I'm smart? I didn't know that. Nobody ever told me that."
Yeah.
So, what kids will believe, when you tell a kid what they are, they'll listen to you. So she told me that. And then all of a sudden I got a perfect 4.0 in every class.
Yeah.
And then I really got inspired by the class because, I'd always been sort of a loudmouth, always gotten in trouble for shit. So my journalism studies were mostly focused on First Amendment law. Then graduated, got a few gigs as a journalist, nothing impressive, but I mean, I did do some fun stuff, like I covered some mafia trial in Sicily.
Wow.
Yeah, that was interesting when the guy driving me to the trial picks me up and he's got 2 bullet holes in his windshield covered with tape. And I was like, "Why don't you?"
Covered with tape.
And he's like, "I don't fix it anymore. They shoot at me so much. I don't see any point in fixing the bullet holes." And they're right in front of me in the windshield. And I'm like, "Well, that's comforting. Hopefully they'll have better aim next time."
Oh, you're funny. Well, so tell me, I mean, what have been some of your favorite cases to work on in your career? I don't know if you can share if they're like babies to you and you can't pick or how that works.
It's almost, when people ask me that question, I really should have a list, because I've had journalists call me and ask me, "Hey, I want to talk about this case you worked on." I'm like, did I work on that? Because it's just, as soon as, no, they're not like babies, because like babies, you have them and then you give a shit about them forever. The moment my case is over, I'm just like, yeah, it's almost like a like fish, or frogs. You lay the egg and you're done. Or an irresponsible NFL player with his kids. I don't know. You.
Oh no.
Yeah, I don't really think about them much after, but I really have enjoyed, like, so, it's often the ones that don't make the press. Like I've worked on a couple of discrimination cases, transsexual discrimination cases where the activist organizations wouldn't even touch them. And I'm like, sure, I'll do it. And, and I have somebody on the phone crying saying, "You're the first person that's ever stuck up for me in my whole life." And I'm like, damn, man, that's when you call your mom and say, "Mom, I had I'm being Sicilian. Of course, I'm a mama's boy." I call my mom and I'm like, "Mom, I guess what happened at work today?" So things like that. But, also ones, I just love the ones where somebody's bullying somebody. I had a case where this woman out in Vegas complained that she felt like a realtor had treated her in a racist and sexist manner. And, if you read the transcript of what he said, even I looked at him like, I don't see what the heck's troubling about that. But, I read that exact statement to like 5 different Black women in a row. And every one of them, before I got the statement out of my mouth, was like, "Oh, he said what?" I'm like, wow, there's like some secret code in there that. So, the point wasn't, was it racist or sexist? It was she lying when she said she felt that way? And, the trial court said, "Yep, that's defamation." The appellate court said the same thing. And then I just, then I was like, all right, I'm not fighting this the right way. And I essentially like set fire to the room, and burned every bridge I could. But I said, this is the most fucked up decision since Dred Scott. And the Nevada Supreme Court reversed that 8-0.
Wow.
So when I got to call her and say, "Guess what? You won and you have a case named after you," she's pretty happy with that.
Yeah.
Like the Satanic Temple stuff is always fun. I mean, we worked on another case, that had nothing to do with civil rights, but it was I had another case where there was a guy made a film that was a Star Trek film, but it wasn't sanctioned by Paramount.
Yeah.
And so they sued him for copyright infringement. And personally, I think the case was right. But I came in on behalf of some language professors, constructed language people, saying that the one element they sued over was they said you can't use the Klingon language. Well, Klingon is actually a language. I don't know if you knew that, but
no.
Yeah, it's not just noises they're making. They actually came up with a grammar and a text and everything. And there are people who actually have like conversations in it. There's literally been a couple of Klingon weddings.
Oh, man.
There was one family, there's actually been one native speaker of Klingon. They raised their kid for 5 years, speaking nothing but Klingon to him. Yeah, they stopped doing that. I think maybe because they wanted him to one day see female genitalia.
You're gonna be defending that guy in the future.
Right. Yeah, no, that guy's definitely gonna be in a basement one day, put lipstick on, dancing to Tiffany with a list of people to kill. But I said, look, nobody gets to own this. So that was fun because we wrote part of it in Klingon. And I'm not even like a Star Trek guy. And it made all these people mad. Like I got all this hate mail from people who were really into Klingon.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't write this right and this grammar's wrong. I'm like, geez, man, I'm friggin' sorry. But on the other hand, I got their point because these people have conferences and conventions.
Yeah.
And who am I? I just waltz in. It's like, oh, this guy's getting recognized for using Klingon. I'm like, well, I'm sorry. I would have brought you guys along if I had realized how much it meant to everybody.
But you definitely have style, Mark. I will give you that. And you do have fun. It does seem that way. And you have.
I don't work a day in my life. Yeah, I do not work.
Yeah.
This is what I would do if I won the lottery.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Well, so how did you come to being involved in these beer First Amendment cases, right? Did it start with Flying Dog or how did that start?
Yeah, I mean, I've done lots of commercial speech First Amendment cases. Mm-hmm. So Flying Dog is I like to call them a First Amendment advocacy organization that sells beer to fund the litigation.
It is like Ralph Steadman is like, how do I piss those North Carolina ABC people off today? I know.
And nobody was even trying to piss anyone off.
Oh.
But that one came because Flying Dog had a long-standing First Amendment lawyer that worked for them who's decided he's gonna lay off on the work for a while. And it choked me up when I got the referral because they said, hey, this guy says that you're the guy to do this. And I'm like, wow, man, because I still think of myself as 22 years old. The color of the beard might belie that, but this happened to me prematurely. I still think of myself as just starting out. So that was really cool to be able to do that and to be defending Ralph Steadman's art. Are you shitting me? Like for a lawyer like me who, one of my favorite parts about being a lawyer is when you're just getting wasted with your friends and you can say, as your attorney, I advise you to have another cap of mushrooms. That's the best part about having a law degree to me. As your attorney, I advise you to take another bong hit. So when, to be in there defending Ralph Steadman's art in front of the government, trying to get rid of a government statute that I think is completely unconstitutional, it doesn't get any better than that.
Mm-hmm. And they did, right? I mean, in the recent case, they got rid of, what was it? Strike the regulation of allowing NC ABC commissioners to ban labels that they feel are in bad taste. Yeah. Do you think that will actually happen though? Right? Aren't these guys trained to like, nope, that's in bad taste? Are they really going to do that? Do you think?
Happens all the time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, it happened time and time again. In fact, there was a lawyer I brought on as co-counsel. His name's Michael Boyer at Carolina Craft Legal. Mm-hmm. Now, it's funny. I found him because, like I was talking about the Klingon thing. Yeah. It's sort of like, who the hell is Marc Randazza in this? You know, there's a whole bunch of people for whom that would have been just totally in their strike zone. And here I am waltzing in. And I found some of his writing online. I'm like, you know, that kid's going to feel that way if this case goes on in his backyard and he's not involved. So I called him just to say, hey, why don't you sign on to it? Just so that, like, you know, he's 6 years out of law school. I said, get your name on it. Let's see about, you know, propelling you up a bit. And so I make it sound like I was doing it out of charity, which I was. But within about 32 minutes of knowing this guy, I realized, man, I just plucked Tom Brady out of the seventh round. He was invaluable because, I mean, I knew all the First Amendment stuff, but I said, you know, I asked that question. I said, well, how many times has this even happened? He's like, oh, this happened like 32 times, including this way. You know, he's like citing the cases. He knew all of them. I mean, he knew everything down. So on that technical stuff, I could not have done it without him. So it has, you know, to answer your question, it's happened a lot. And most people don't bother to appeal it. Like, that's the problem. You know, I fought a similar regulation in the trademark office that banned immoral and scandalous trademarks. I wrote, you know, something that sort of went viral called the fuck brief, where, you know, they had said that, I can swear on this, right? I mean, I guess.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you knew who the fuck I was when you said that I should interview, right? But I try to keep it clean, but it's just not in my nature.
Unless you know how to say it in Klingon, then we'd prefer that. So.
You know, I don't. I really don't. We should get somebody who can. I can say it in like 27 other languages, but they. What was I saying? Oh yeah, you know. So this trade, you know, I had represented this website called Fucking Machines, which is one of the kink.com's franchises, and they rejected it, saying, well, that's immoral and scandalous. So I wrote like 25 pages on why the word fuck is not immoral or scandalous. And I lost, you know, I lost that case like one after another. I did win one for them for whipped ass for a spanking website, you know, which I don't know. Some of this stuff, when you work in porn, you look at this stuff and people think, oh, that must be fun. You get to watch porn all day. It's not.
It's not. It gets old real. It's like eating pizza every day, right? I mean, that's probably.
It's sometimes, it's not even like eating pizza all day. It's almost like eating Olive Garden all day, you know, because, you know, a lot of my porn work has been for people worried about getting prosecuted for obscenity. So you can imagine if somebody calls you and says, can you watch my porn movie and tell me if I'm going to go to prison for it? Right? You're not worried about that if it's just like, you know, hi, I'm here to fix the cable. And, and then he comes in and does something other than fix the cable. Yeah. So
I mean, obscenity in a porn film, what's the line?
You know, you never know until you've actually gone to court. You won't know until after your trial. It's the only crime you can't have committed until after you're convicted. Yeah. Which I find, just as a First Amendment advocate, to be abhorrent. But I will tell you where my line was. And it's it's here. This isn't the trash can I used at the time. Oh. Mesh, but it was if I threw up into my trash can watching your movie, I would say you're gonna go to jail. Well, why? Because it made you throw up. I'm like, if it made me throw up, imagine 6 people who couldn't get out of jury duty. All right, this is gonna be mostly like little old ladies who are gonna be sitting there. And, you know, I mean, I can't even hear that music from Two Girls, One Cup without, you know, retching.
Getting triggered.
Right. Yeah. So, you know, imagine if I've never made it through more than 6 seconds of Two Girls, One Cup. So
it's been a few years for me, but
you ever watched the whole thing?
No.
Years ago.
Right.
You
got through it.
Yeah. I don't know.
But Jordan, you've never gotten through it.
No way.
Right. No. So can you imagine, like, yeah, if you can't get through it, how are they going to feel? Although,
hey, you know, go ahead. Sorry.
It's funny. I find women are more able to watch it than men.
Well, I mean, you know, we probably changed more diapers in our lives, so we're used to it.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, whatever it is, it's a
It's a thing.
constant. So we're talking about beer, right?
Yeah.
Right. Well, I have one more like beer technical question to ask you, and then I'll pass it off to Jordan because I've been bogarting the conversation. So, I mean, obviously you work in trademark, and I was at Craft Brewers Conference recently, and there was a trademark session, rather bland, but the guy did say, watch out for the trademark bullies, but he actually mentioned in the context of like now companies like Monster are moving into Bev Alc, obviously, right? And they're sort of known trademark dogs with a bone. So any thoughts about how much more action we're going to see in this space in the future in our industry?
Yeah, I mean, there's always one or two companies out there like Monster. I mean, I think Monster is just full of crap. And might be a good segue to the other big case I was doing, which is Stone Brewing, which, if you look on the USPTO website, even stuff like, using the word stone in other languages for other products, they find some reason to object to it. So it is, it is, trademarks are really about whether the consumer would be confused or not whether, your law firm needs to up its billing that month. But there are some companies that tend to do that. But there's plenty of room for hundreds of monsters in the marketplace, as well as there's room for plenty of stones in the marketplace. So yeah, you should worry about that because, I think a lot of people in craft brew, kind of like porn. I mean, the industries are very similar in that it attracts people who aren't really in the mood for a corporate job. They're entrepreneurial, they're creative. They tend to have a pretty good sense of humor. And then you wind up doing something like you try to parody somebody else's mark and you wind up in trouble. There were a lot of cases involving, back 15 years ago, involving porn companies that thought it would be funny to do stuff that were knockoffs of other products or other movies. And they'd say, hey, that's sort of tarnishing our brand. And they had a point. And similarly here, you do have to watch out for that. So it is a good idea. The other thing that makes the industry similar is it's extremely hard to convince them to really spend a significant amount of effort and money on legal until they get in trouble. And, frankly, I like that attitude because I don't buy nice those from the client, based on the revenue from the clients who listen to advice and ask before they do something. Those are the $400, a month, or, maybe a couple $1,000 a year clients that you have them forever and they never get in any big trouble. It's the ones that call you up and say, well, I don't know why I can't do that. And then they do it and then they call you back and it's like, sweet, daddy's going to buy another Corvette. So it is something small businesses tend to say, it's not a big deal. I don't need to do it. Or even they don't bother to register their trademarks. And, that is so cheap and it's so quick and it's so easy. I mean, it can take a while for the trademark office to do it, but they get charged $1,500 for that. If you do that, and companies that say, well, we'll worry about it if something happens later. It's like, well, bet on yourself, man, because if you succeed, that's an asset that is worth magnitudes more than that $1,500. The flying dog trademark. I mean, if that company were ever to try to sell itself, I mean, that's worth millions. You could slap that on some other product and immediately have goodwill built in it. So, these little breweries that started with nothing. I mean, another one of my clients, Sycamore Brewing, when they started, they were just a little tap room. And now all of a sudden they're a very large player in the field. So they were at least correctly and smartly advised by, I know I sound like a commercial for Michael Boyer, but and his partner Cameron, I don't want to forget him, but I worked with Michael Moore. This guy has lots of little breweries that he has at least been able to convince in North Carolina that they've got to do that.
Yeah. Well, since you brought them up, what was it like going up against Stone? They claim they're not that litigious, but it seems like they have a pretty good legal team.
I don't really have a lot of respect for their legal team. I don't have any problem saying that publicly. Let me tell you a story. I took my daughter, who's 13, who thinks she might want to be a lawyer. So she spent her April vacation going to beer hearings. She went to the Flying Dog hearing, where we were up against the Attorney General's office in North Carolina. And I don't think I've ever met a group of people who were more collegial, courteous, professional, and, litigated hard. They didn't give me any points. They made me earn every point I scored. But they were skilled at what they knew how to do. And they didn't feel like they needed to bullshit anybody or anything like that. The law is the law, the facts are the facts. And, my daughter was cracking up at the end of that hearing because she said, Daddy, did I just watch two grown men stand up in a courtroom with a judge talking about little pink penises on a beer bottle? I'm like, yeah, that's how come, that's how we pay the mortgage. But after
a penis, Mark, I didn't even think it was a penis. I thought it was a skin flap.
Penis, one person's penis is another person's skin flap, I guess. But after the Stone hearing, she said to me, boy, his parents never told him no when he was little, did they? I'll give you one example. We brought out it was really fun. We brought out the 6-packs that had the infringing mark on each side of it. So on the short side of the 6-pack, it's got this keep it juicy mark. And I asked the judge if I could approach the bench. The judge was like, do you have beer with you? And I was like, yes. And he says, well, under our local rules, any attorney with beer may approach the bench. He had a good sense of humor too. And I brought him up and I put him down, and you can see the two labels there. You've seen the picture before, so it's pretty obvious. And their lawyer turned them to the side and said, no, this is how they're in the store, the long way. Either he's never been in a store, which is possible. There are people who are wealthy enough that other people do their shopping for them, or it was bullshit. And I'm going to call bullshit. That was, no, I really don't know how they selected that counsel, but they can do better.
Gotcha. And speaking on the Flying Dog case, I think the ruling at the end of that was, something along the lines of, you should know better going up against Flying Dog. Do these old regulators really know better though? Do you see yourself working for Flying Dog again in the future?
Oh, that's your lips to God's ears. Yes. But, I do, because you got to think about the political process. These things get passed. If you ever done any lobbying or just watched legislation be made, it's about as pretty as watching sausage get made. So, one person sitting there and says, well, I don't think we should allow that. I don't think we should allow that. All kinds of unconstitutional laws get passed every day. Like the federal obscenity statute, nobody knows this. Everybody's jaws drop when I tell them this. The federal obscenity statute also makes it illegal to even talk about where you can get an abortion, like illegal. And that was signed into law by Bill Clinton. So, and you look at it and you're like, what the hell is that? Well, it's waiting for someone to challenge it. A lot of lawmakers, I'm sure Bill Clinton didn't think this is a good idea, but he figured, you know what? I'll leave it for somebody like Randazza one day to challenge this. It's just, I don't need the political fallout from people saying that I vetoed this bill, so we're going to let it be. And they sit there and they hang out there, and these unconstitutional statutes will just sit there until somebody has the wherewithal to challenge it. But to have the wherewithal to challenge it, first you need standing. So you need to be a person who's aggrieved by it. Then you need someone to actually take some government action. So you got that. Then you need to want to spend the money, and then you need to have a lawyer nuts enough to do it. So, the quadrifecta came together for Flying Dog, but I'm sure these regulations exist in probably every state. So the Flying Dog's taken out 2 of them so far. So color that map in with Michigan and North Carolina. Let's see what we get next.
Gotcha. And then just last one for me. Did you enjoy working with these breweries, and has anybody else reached out to you from the industry about helping them out?
Yes. First of all, yes, I loved working for both of them. I mean, Flying Dog is just, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that for a First Amendment lawyer, right? And the thing I loved about working with Sycamore is, you just see this, it's a family business that just thrived and blew up. When you see like nice people succeed, it just makes you so happy. It's kind of like when I watch, like, half the time I'm laughing at Jackass movies. I'm just so happy for those guys that they managed to turn that into a lifelong career. I mean, not that Justin over at Sycamore is anything like the Jackass guys, but except when you meet him, you talk to him, you see what he does, how he feels about his employees, how he feels about his product, and that it is still managed by him and his wife. You just look at it. I was very happy and proud to be a little piece of his success. So yes, now smaller breweries, I have worked with other breweries. I've got others that I'm in talks with right now, smaller things saying, this is how I want to keep you out of this problem. But, don't find yourself calling me when you have an emergency. If you want to call me now, well, call me now. It's a lot cheaper now. In fact, usually free.
And then I have two last questions because I always have to, I always say I have a shirt that says I have one more question.
Yeah.
Is the Stone suit is over, right? You guys settled, it is, because I feel like, they came out with like a victory lap because
again, that's because they are represented by shitbags. And because it's, what we had in that case is, look, we had a preliminary injunction, which I have reams. I have like emails this long from them saying that we would never get the preliminary injunction, and
that's really hard to secure, right? I mean, a preliminary injunction, no, yes, no.
It depends. If you have the facts and the law, you get them. But it's like, I mean, I would just get these screeds of anger, and my response would just be, "You mad, bro?" And because I just don't have time for that crap. Yeah. But we went in, we got the injunction. The court ordered them to cover up all the labels all over the place. In some places, they did it mostly. They claimed to have covered 95% of them. And then the judge did something really unusual. Normally, a case like this is, say, 18 months from filing to trial. The judge said, I want trial in 30 days, which is like, whoa, that's like if you get pregnant and say, I want a baby in 30 days. Well, 15 days, actually, if you compress it like that. How are you going to do that? Well, it's going to take some serious work. So it was going to be weeks of depositions, weeks of motion practice. It was probably going to be, I was estimating another $300,000 to $400,000 in legal fees. So if you got 95% of what you wanted for, I'd say about 100 grand. Why spend another 400 grand to get the other 5%? So again, Michael Boyer commercial here. I was actually teaching a class, and by the class started, I had no idea this was happening. And by the time the class ended, I saw that the case had settled. So he worked out a deal. He got through to their general counsel, their in-house general counsel. The two of them seemed to hit it off and have sort of a meeting of the minds as general counsels and got it resolved. So yeah, I know Stone claims it's like a victory for them. Well, they, I don't know what looks like victory for them, but it's sometimes like when you get your ass kicked in a bar fight and you come out, and you got your teeth hanging out and blood coming out of your eye and you go, oh, you should see the other guy.
Right. Yeah. Interesting stuff. Yeah, and I do wonder, hopefully nobody else will fall into the trap of using the trademark, keep it juicy, right? Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. It seems like, it seems pretty easy. The thing that we found most offensive about it is, had it been some, they've had disputes with other smaller breweries that have stumbled onto their trademark. It can happen. People can make mistakes. And every one of them, they have worked out with, a phone call, a handshake, and everybody's happy. But, when you look at a company like Stone, which has been such a bully, mean, has looked at, you only have to look at the USPTO's website to see how many times they've come in and tried to stop somebody else. And they had this big public relations campaign about how, you're an idiot if you don't at least check the PTO website before you use something. That led us to believe that, this is probably not unintentional. It may have been unintentional, but it was then at least reckless. And, they were very offended that we filed without calling them first. But given how they behaved in litigation, we did a psych profile on them before we filed. I mean, you don't just file willy-nilly, all right? But by the time I filed a lawsuit against you, usually I know your dog's name. I do every single bit of background I can. And I looked at how they were managed, how they were represented. And I said, if we make this phone call, what I think is going to happen is they're going to file a declaratory judgment action against us in San Diego, where we're going to get hometowned. That's what happened to Miller Coors. I mean, that case is just outrageous. And I don't know if it's going to be upheld on appeal or not, but Miller Coors, had that been fought in a forum other than San Diego, I don't think it would have come out that way.
That was one of my questions, right? Like, I don't know if you can weigh in on the Keystone or if it matters, but
yeah, that's not my case. I can talk about that all I want.
So you think if it wouldn't have been in San Diego, it could have come out very differently?
I think if it wouldn't have been in San Diego, it would have come out very differently. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of like, look, don't sue the Red Sox in Boston. And look, Stone's a beloved business in San Diego. So I mean, the Chargers moved and Stone didn't. So they're a kind of a local hero company. It's going to be very difficult to find a juror who's not going to like them. So there was that issue. And so I think that wound up being somewhat financially disastrous. I mean, it was a $65 million verdict. I don't find any of it to make much sense, but they are up on appeal, and we'll see what the Ninth Circuit has to say about it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then last question. What is Ralph Steadman like?
I've never met him.
Oh, you never met him? Okay.
No, I haven't met him yet. There wouldn't be a need to meet him because it really didn't matter. It wasn't. If we had to have discovery about, okay, Mr. Steadman, what is this? Is that a penis? He probably would have said, yeah, it's a dick. What's your problem? So
How old is that guy? He's got to be like 80 at least, right?
Timeless.
Yeah, man. If I make it to 80, I'll be really happy. So,
Yeah, I don't know. It all depends on what 80's like, right?
True. I like the gin like you do, a little too much. So we'll see. My other habits are good though.
Oh, you're only drinking off the bad years.
Yeah, but I don't know what my natural cap was, right? So yeah, it's all relative.
Well, yeah, you're Sicilian, right?
Yeah, well, that and a million other things.
Yeah, you live to be 120 probably. My grandfather lived forever.
Well, Marc, thank you so much for your time and your insights. You've been super awesome and open. We appreciate it. So thank you for making the time for being with me.